Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harrison. I read, review, and discuss fantasy and science fiction books. Today, we are going to be tier list ranking every single book and one short story and two short story collections that I have read in 2024. So there are 33 books here, so I don't think that there's any reason for us to delay. Let's get straight into things. Now, this list is in a completely random order, so the books that I've literally just finished this morning are in there in the middle, Lord of Chaos here, and then we've got books that I finished on the 1st of January. Red Rising is here as well. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go left to right and go through all of these books. And possibly a cat will appear. He looks like he wants to come up, although I'm wearing a black t-shirt, so don't know whether that's particularly sensible or safe. But what we're going to do is let's get into this. Let's go through it anyway. So, first off, Return of the Griffin by JCM Burns. So, you guys know that I'm a big Hybrid Helix fan, and this is the second Hybrid Helix book, and this is the one where we get to go back to Earth and see what this kind of superhero affected society is like back on Earth. And I think that JCM Byrne has done a really interesting thing with what he's done with so humans know that aliens exist and that superheroes exist. So how does that affect us? How does that affect the world? So I thought that was really interesting. All the new characters are great. All the new Earth-based superheroes. So I'm going to throw this one straight into the A tier. I want to make sure I'm using the tiers here today, okay? So I've got some books that my opinion may have changed on since my review. I've got some books that and I've got here, so I've got 4 tiers, right? So S is obviously the top tier. But do I have books that I would put in the D tier out of this list? Maybe. I want to make sure I'm using all of the tiers here today. So the S is going to be the very, very best books that I've read this year. And the D tier are going to be books that I think are strong recommends for a smaller audience. Does that make sense? So let's actually scroll Return of the Griffin down to B. And I think that Return of the Griffin is good, but that the books that follow it, so Shadow of Hyperion and the Blood Reunion, are slightly better. So I want to give myself also room to have those on higher tiers. Next up, we have The Prophet of Idan. And this is going to go straight into the A tier. So I really enjoyed Way of Idan, the first Idan book. Coffee. But the second Idan book was a real surprise. So I was not expecting the way it ended. I thought that the action that opened the book was excellent. The development of all the characters and of the story in general was really excellent. So I'm going to throw Prophet of Idan into A tier. People also talk about how Return to Idan is far and beyond more interesting, weird, experimental. So I'm giving myself room for when I've read that later this year to throw Return to Idan in the S tier as well. Lesser Devil is also going to go into the... is it an A tier? Yeah, I think I enjoyed... So, The Lesser Devil is probably the thing that got me to continue reading Sun Eater after having a pretty middling experience with Empire of Silence. So, Empire of Silence was kind of I felt like I'd been kind of sold a bill of goods with Empire of Silence, and we'll come to that when we talk about that. Well, we should rank that right now, actually. I'm going to throw that straight into the C tier. So, I feel like Empire of Silence, I felt like I'd been sold a bill of goods. I was being told, oh, this is this big epic space opera, and 75% of the book, in fact, 100% of the book takes place on 2 planets, and one of those, and more than half of the book takes place in the same city. which I found quite disappointing. I didn't particularly love the narration style from Hadrian, and I don't know, that book just didn't really do it for me at all. But then when we moved into the short story arena, well, not short story, novella arena with The Lesser Devil, so it's quite short. It's like a 4-hour read, like audio book or whatever, 4 or 5 hours. But this was giving us a new point of view, not Hadrian's, and letting us see Hadrian from that person's point of view, which was way more interesting to me. And also the story was really interesting, and the like place that the story took place, I thought was really interesting. Like the kind of conceptually what was going on there. I'm going to move my phone because it keeps buzzing because I'm a very popular boy. Next up, we have Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. So this is a difficult one. So do I want to put this in the A tier, or do I want to make this the top of the B tier? I loved Eye of the World, but I'm going to put this at the top of the B tier, and the reason being is Eye of the World was a really good book that I think I liked more than the quality of the book because of how low my expectations were. Because so many people who love The Wheel of Time spend all of their time telling you how shit The Wheel of Time is. And so I was expecting, like, you know, good moments, but that the books might have been a bit dry. And I just really enjoyed Eye of the World. I felt like the character of Rand was really well explored. I thought that the magic system was really interesting. The world was really interesting. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with Eye of the World. And while I want, again, to give myself room to give later books A and S tier rankings, the Eye of the World is still a very good book. When we're looking at these rankings, I don't think there's anything I've read this year that I'd be like, actually, people shouldn't read this. Like, I wouldn't recommend it. Because the way that my reading is going is basically a lot of the stuff that I'm reading is like already like booktube darlings, booktube favourites, whatever. So I don't know. I don't feel like I'm reading stuff that isn't great. Anyway, let's move on. So, Red Rising. This one, I gave this a 5 stars at the beginning of the year, and I think I'm going to throw this into the C tier. So that is a really big turnaround. And I think I've re-ranked it on Goodreads now as 4 stars, which can tell you, like, how I feel about all of these books. If like a 4-star book is going in the C tier, I think that there's a lot to love in Red Rising. I like a lot of the opening section. I like a lot of the pre-Institute stuff, and I think that most of the Institute stuff is very interesting. But I think there's some aspects that I just didn't like at all. And yeah, it's just, yeah, I think that this is kind of like, I would say top of the C tier probably, but it is a C tier book for me. It's pales a little bit in the fact that Golden Sun is so much better. And looking back on it, did I enjoy it because it was such a fast and breezy read more than the fact that it was such a high quality read? I don't know. I'm looking forward to reading the Red Rising sequels when we get to those. It might not even be this year, to be honest, but I do want to get to them. In an ideal world, I can read Red God when it comes out with everyone else, which I think is planned for next year. So as long as I've read all the sequels before Red God comes out, there's only 3 books, so I think that'd be alright. Lord of Chaos. I finished reading this morning, and it's going in the S tier. It's going in the S tier. So Lord of Chaos is a mad book that I really, really enjoyed. This feels like, so a lot of the Wheel of Time books so far have felt like this big thing is happening in that book. So The Shadow Rising has the big story with Perrin, and Fires of Heaven kind of brings us back to the main cast, to Rand. But then Lord of Chaos is like the first book where the storylines seem to be tying up. So there's been characters that are referenced throughout the first 5 books that like start to become important in this book, like Mazrin Time, and we get more going on with Loghain, and Min gets a bigger presence in this book. So this one feels like Jordan kind of tying together a few things and paying off on a lot of stories that he set up. So really enjoyed that. But I'm going to be recording my review at some point soon, but it's not going to go up for a couple of weeks. So please be patient. But yeah, really enjoyed this one. The Wandering Inn is going to go at the top of the A tier. So a lot of you might be thinking like, oh, why isn't this an S tier book? I think it's excellent. I'm also giving myself room for future books to be higher ranked. And on top of that, the thing that I want to say is that there was one real duffer chapter that I thought was, and it was like a long chapter. It was like a over 10,000 word chapter, and I honestly didn't enjoy reading it. It took me hours to read this chapter. Yeah, just a real bummer in what has been a genuinely fantastic reading experience. Also, the way that, because this is a serialized story, right? Book 1 kind of just has a climax out of nowhere and an ending out of nowhere. I don't know whether that's because it was rewritten. I don't know whether that's because of the kind of the drawbacks of it being serialized. But yeah, really, this is an excellent book, which I feel like had the one terrible chapter that I thought was badly written, honestly. Like, it wasn't that it was like, oh, this plot didn't go in a way that I'd like. It was that it genuinely felt poorly written. And then there is, as I was saying, the ending kind of comes out of nowhere, and I didn't really enjoy it. So a lot of stuff going on, but really at the end of the day, I felt like this is a strong book with 2 very minor negatives. So yeah, The Wandering Inn, I'm going to be doing a video at some point soon that's like why you should start reading The Wandering Inn. And my main reason is it's great and it's free to read online, and you can read it week to week like I have, almost like a TV episode, and I just had a great time. So I would recommend it if you have not read it. Infinity Gate. This is going to be an A as well. So I gave this one 5 stars and it's staying in the A tier. So again, that tells you what I think about the S tier and the A and B tiers. So Infinity Gate is a multiverse sci-fi book based around the city of Lagos in a world that's kind of similar to ours, but a little bit further advanced in the climate crisis. Really enjoyed that book, and the way that the characters from our world, or that world as it were, spin out and out into the multiverse, and the world building of the multiverse, and how the kind of the technology works and the society is set up. Absolutely loved it. My review went up yesterday as you watch this, so if you haven't watched that review, please do. I think it's only got like 40 views or something, but genuinely one of my favourite experiences of the year. And I will massively shout out the audiobook. I think the narrator's fantastic, and I will definitely be looking out for more audiobooks read by her at some point in the future. And I'll be reading the sequel hopefully quite soon. I have a few sci-fi books that I need to get to ASAP, but I do really want to read the sequel. Surviving Westcliff is going to go in the B tier as well. So Surviving Westcliff I reviewed last week. I also interviewed the author, Thomas Perkins. Surviving Westcliff is a really strong book. The fact that it's the first book that Thomas Perkins has felt comfortable putting out is mad, because he's not published anything else before, and while he has written other books, he hasn't finished and published. But this book was really good. It's basically about a colony that's got colony gone wrong, basically. So all of these people kind of are coming off the back of a big like civil war siege sort of thing, and the siege was pretty much a massacre and a disaster for everyone involved, and a lot of people are fleeing not only that specific event but the consequences of that event out to start a new colony on this island in the middle of nowhere. And it's got some really interesting characters. One that is especially like quite objectionable that I loved. So you know, one of those proper love to hate characters. But yeah, really enjoyed this book. Everyone should read it. Let's move on. I can't talk for like 5 minutes about every single book. Tales of the Sunnytoon Volume 2 is going in the D tier. So this was a good short story collection. Like I said, there's nothing bad on this list at all. But I just felt like this was a lot weaker than the first short story collection. So I'm going to throw this down in the D tier. But watch my review if you like my full thoughts on it, because I go story by story through the collection. Will of the Many. This is a difficult one. I don't know whether to put this one in the B or the A tier. I think I enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed Infinity Gate, so I'm going to throw that in on the A tier. Now, I've said about this before when I've talked about this, that I liked this book, but I didn't love this book. And I think that one of the issues with this is really that I was reading it when I was kind of in a bit of a reading slump. Like, this book's only 600 pages, and it took me over 2 weeks to read, whereas I read Lord of Chaos in like 6 days, and that's 1,000 pages. So I was just in a bit of a reading slump. Surviving Westcliff actually massively cured that slump and has got me way back into reading again. But yeah, The Will of the Many was a book that I liked, didn't love, but I know that it's a fantastic book and I loved a lot of aspects of it. And I just took a while for me to get into it. Like, I read the first 400 pages over like 2 weeks, and then the last 200 pages in like 24 hours. So the ending was really fantastic, but the kind of the earlier sections of the book I was like, this is good, but I don't know how I feel about it. There you go. So this one, The Blood That Burns the Winter Snow, is the only Bound and the Broken release for this year, and it's a short story. I think I'll place that in C as well. It's good. It's a short story. There's not really much to talk about it. If you like The Bound and the Broken, it's a nice supplemental piece, but it doesn't really give you any big revelations, or you don't really learn anything incredible about it. I did do a YouTube short about this one, so if you've got a minute, go and watch it. JCM Burns Partial Function. So this is related to the Hybrid Helix books. I didn't enjoy it as much as the Hybrid Helix books, which is why I'm going to pop it in at the top of the C. So I liked the ideas in the book. I liked the world building. I liked the characters. But they didn't stick with me as much as the Hybrid Helix books. Pardon me. Didn't stick with me as much as the Hybrid Helix books have. So I've decided that this one is the weakest of the JCM Burton books. However, I still think it's worth a read, and I would definitely rank it at the top of the C tier so far. The Shadow Rising is also an excellent book. Is this going in the top? Yes. So currently we have an All Wheel of Time S tier, but that's purely based on what's coming in the order that it's coming out. The Shadow Rising is excellent. It's the first 1,000-pager in the Wheel of Time, and it genuinely earns its page count. All the character stories are really good, but it made me fall for Perrin. So a lot of the books, as they go, are like, I felt like each book kind of sold me on a character. So like book 1 was like, here's the world. Book 2 sold me on Rand. Book 3 sold me on Matt. And then book 4 sold me on Perrin. And I mean, from there on, I'm kind of bought in on everyone. But Perrin was like the last person that I was not sure about. And I grew to love him really strongly in Shadow Rising, and then missed him in the following books. Promise of Blood, the first book in the Powder Mage trilogy, is another A tier, I think. Where does our... Let's just place it in the A tier. I'm not going to say it's the top of the A or whatever, but really enjoyed this one. I thought the world building was excellent. It was a lovely fast read despite me having barely any time to read that month. And yeah, great book. Looking forward to reading the sequels, although I have been told they aren't as good, which is weird. But I'm going to still try and get to them. So Tales of the Sun Eater Volume 1, I'm going to throw into the B tier, and that's going to be right at the bottom of the B tier. I'd be tempted to throw it in C, but I do think I enjoyed it more than Empire of Silence and Red Rising and Partial Function. There's one duffer of a short story in this short story collection, but the others are all really interesting, and there's a couple that I really, really liked. So there's one that's like about a like private detective style fixer. It was really good. But yeah, so I would throw that one in the B tier. Then we've got here yeah, sorry about that. Then we've got here Queen Amid Ashes, which is going to go in the D tier as well. So we've got an all Wheel of Time S tier and an all Sun Eater D tier. Queen Amid Ashes was just kind of like, it didn't feel necessary. I feel like there's more interesting stories to tell in the Sun Eater world. And it was very predictable. I just felt like I kind of knew what was going on the whole time. Hi, Barry. I don't know if you guys can... Well, you'll be able to see his tail. Barry has now joined the video. So I don't know... I'd still say it was worth reading. But I think that if I had not been doing my running and reading video, I would not have enjoyed Queen Amid Ashes really at all. Not at all, but I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much as when I was doing that specific challenge. The Dragon Reborn I really, really liked, but I don't want to put every Wheel of Time book in the S tier, so I am going to... No, the Dragon Reborn deserves to be in the S tier, actually. The Dragon Reborn is really good, and it does this fantastic thing, which is, I'm going to say, an incredibly mild spoiler here, but the book kind of follows the aftermath of what's going on with a certain character rather than following that character, which we have done in the previous books. So you've kind of got this character who's kind of like making their way across the map and, you know, causing all these crazy things to happen. And we see the aftermath. We get to know Matt a lot more, and Matt's a really good character that I absolutely loved after reading Dragon Reborn. So yeah, really, really loved this book. It deserves to be in the S tier. People should read The Wheel of Time. It's great. Don't let Wheel of Time fans stop you reading The Wheel of Time. Morning Star is a C. I'd probably put that... yeah, it's a C. It's quite a middling book, really. I felt like Pierce Brown spends like half the book gathering allies that don't make any difference at the end of the book. So it's just felt like wasted time on side quests. Looking forward to reading future Red Rising books to see if he manages to nail multi-POV, which I think might solve some of the issues I have with both Red Rising and Morning Star. Blood Rain, this one's going to go in the D tier as well. So this is an indie book written by Ezra Payne. It's the first in his Hateful Tales series. I actually had Ezra on the channel to talk about the book. And Blood Rain is not a bad book in any way. Like I said before, none of these are bad books. I want to make sure I'm using the entire scale here to show you how I feel about these books. The big negative that I had for Blood Rain was that we often will... There's a couple of really big events in the world that we kind of move on from a bit too quickly. It's a very, very fast-paced book, to the point where I feel like if you were looking at someone like Brandon Sanderson or whatever, this could have been a trilogy to tell the same story. and I did really like the book, and I will be reading the next Hateful Tales, but just had a couple of issues with it. It was a nice fast read though, so if you're looking for something to break a slump and you want a nice fast read, this is the one for you. Next up we have The Great Hunt, which is a good book, not a great book. Let's go to the A or B? A or B? I honestly don't know. Should we put this at the top of the B tier? We'll put it at the top of the B tier. I don't think The Great Hunt is as good as Promise of Blood, Will of the Many, Infinity Gate, so we're going to put it there. The Great Hunt is the first book where Jordan really flexes his muscles on the Wheel of Time, and it's the first one where he starts to really step away from his Lord of the Rings pastiche that he does with the first book. I liked a lot of the stuff in it, but the ending was a bit of a damp squib. I think it's squib. The ending was a bit of a damp squib. So while it is good, my thing that I would say is go into it knowing that it gets better. Does that make sense? The Tainted Cup, I'm also going to put in the B tier, but I think at the bottom of the B tier. I almost gave up on this book because it does that thing that I really hate, where it has a mystery as the central part of the book, but an aspect to that mystery could absolutely not be solved by the reader because it is information they don't know. So there's like an opening mystery, and that's kind of solved with information that you couldn't know, and I don't really like that. I wish that it had been something that we'd have had a bit of framing for. Also, the opening chapter is massive, and it just should have been split into multiple chapters. It really annoys me when people do that. I almost DNF'd the book because the opening chapter was so long. I was like, I want to take a break, but I don't like taking breaks in the middle of chapters, if I can help it. So yeah, grade B. Annihilation's going to go in the bottom of the A tier, I think. So this is quite an interesting novel. It's very trippy, but it's also really, really short and easy to read. This is one that I would really recommend, and I don't know if you've seen Murphy Napier's reviews of it. I think she sells it really well. I'm not selling it so well. This is a sci-fi, kind of gives me similar vibes to Infinity Gate actually, because it's like a slightly sci-fi take on our world. But yeah, so yeah, Annihilation is really good. The movie's also good. But I would read the book. It's like 180 pages. You can read it in an afternoon. So yeah, if you're looking for something short, and something that's a bit trippy, and that's got like a really interesting world and set of characters, then Annihilation is the one for you. Blood Reunion, I'm going to throw in the A tier. So this is a really, really good book, because what JCM Byrne does here is he introduces vampires into his sci-fi superhero story, and he explains perfectly how vampires work in that universe using the power system. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I do like vampire stories anyway, so I might be a little bit biased. But yeah, Blood Reunion, really good book. Vampires in space, how can you go wrong? The Trials of Empire is going in the D tier. I talked to you guys about how I wanted to use this full list, and I'm going to be doing that by putting books in the D tier that I think are a bit middling. Trials of Empire, in fact, is very similar to Morningstar, right? So they're both quite similar books. They both deal with like, oh, we're going to recruit all these people for the last battle, and then that last battle doesn't really need those people. It was a bit of a step down from the previous two books, which were both 5 stars and both excellent. One of my most anticipated books for the beginning of the year, and it just didn't hit with me at all, which is sad. But I would still recommend the series overall. I was just quite disappointed by this final book. Now, Shadow of Hyperion is going in the A tier as well. So Shadow of Hyperion is the latest Hybrid Helix book. It kind of crosses over with Partial Function, which I really enjoyed, and it deals with the return of the character Hyperion, and we're like, oh, what's going on with this Hyperion? Why is he back? Who is he? Why is he so different? Really, really interesting kind of character study from the outside. So looking at this kind of heroic Superman-like character, and then the flaws of that character, and how the world reacts to them returning. Really interesting book. If you have not read the Hybrid Helix series, I've pitched it a billion times. Just read it. Just read it. Wistful Ascending is such a fun opening book as well. If you're not hooked after that, then I don't know what to tell you. Golden Sun is going in the A tier 2. I don't think that I think that Golden Sun is very, very good. I don't think that it pips it over into S tier, but I'm going to leave it in the A tier. I had a lot of fun with Golden Sun. Reads really quickly. The expansion of the world that Pierce Brown does here is really, really interesting. So going from the very small scope of Red Rising out to this kind of universal scope in Golden Sun, really well done. Great world building, lovely characters that he introduced. For example, Octavia, Olun, and Lorne. Great characters. I'm looking forward to reading more in this world, as I've said. We have 5 books left. Next up, Tyranny of Faith. So, the Tyranny of Faith is the second book in the Empire of the Wolf, and this is going in the S tier. So, this book kind of increases the scope from Justice of Kings in a way that I didn't 100% love. However, I think that it's done very well. The new characters are great. The introduction of the kind of more cosmic horror element are really good. I love the Mufrab. Richard Swan's got some good names for these characters and the things in this world. But yeah, really like this book. I really like the growth of Helena as well. I think that she manages to really grow and change from Justice of Kings, and I had a great time reading it. Next up is the Fires of Heaven. This is going to go into the A tier. So this one, Fires of Heaven, was very good. And I think that Fires of Heaven had some really, really interesting world building stuff going on. But when I was reading Lord of Chaos and looking at this tier list and thinking about Lord of Chaos, Shadow Rising, I think the Fires of Heaven is just one tiny, teeny step below. So if we were going to say, this is very top of the A tier or very bottom of the S tier, do you know what I mean? Still an excellent book. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. Everyone should read The Wheel of Time. I don't know why Blood Reunion has come on here twice. So if I've forgotten or missed out a book, let me know and I'll put it in the comments where I would have ranked it. But Demon in White is going straight into the S tier. And is Demon in White the best book I've read this year? It's close. It's very close. So Demon in White is what's got me all in on the Sun Eater, despite all the other books being quite low rated. The Demon in White is absolutely fantastic, action-packed, story and lore dense. It expands the universe, but also makes the story more personal and more interesting. Demon in White's like how to write a perfect sequel, and I wish we had gotten to the kind of book that Demon in White is earlier in the series. I feel like Empire of Silence and Howling Dark both could have been Demon in White. But Howling Dark and Empire of Silence just missed the mark on that for me. And in fact, we're going to throw Howling Dark in at the top of the B tier. So Howling Dark has some fantastic lore stuff. It's got some really good scenes, but I feel like the book almost dragged a bit for me in a few spots. So nothing bad in this book, nothing boring, but when you look at Howling Dark through the lens of having read Demon in White, I'm just like, this ain't it. Like, Demon in White is one of the best books I've read this year, and Howling Dark, if you asked me, I might not be able to tell you more than a few of the major plot elements that I enjoyed that have been kind of still relevant. I kind of forget like the first half of the book almost in some ways. So a very good book that is just not as good as books like The Will of the Many, Infinity Gate, Golden Sun, Prophet of Idan. So yeah, Ross and I actually did a full spoiler discussion for Howling Dark. We haven't done one for Demon in White, mostly because I read it so long after Ross, and it's like, is that going to be a fun discussion for you guys? But yeah, so this is what I'm going with. This is the tier list. For some reason, Blood Reunion was on it twice, but let's go through. So we've got, in the S tier, Lord of Chaos, Demon in White, Shadow Rising, Dragon Reborn, and The Tyranny of Faith. And I'm going to say right now that everything in S and A is pretty much a universal recommend for me. There are some people who might not enjoy Promise of Blood or Annihilation, or maybe some people might think The Wandering Inn is a little bit too slow, slice of life-y. But if you like stuff like Robin Hobb, The Wandering Inn is probably something that you'd really enjoy. Imagine like the character focus and the daily life sort of focus of Robin Hobb combined with the world building of someone like Brandon Sanderson. That's what you're looking at with The Wandering Inn. Anyway, and Infinity Gate, so good. I reviewed it yesterday and not enough people have watched that review, so go watch the review, it's great. But that's the tier list, that's where I'm leaving it. Thanks so much for watching this video today. Thank you also to my friend Rebecca at Reading with Rebecca Nicole for reminding me that I should do this video by posting one herself, and then I asked, is it okay if I do one and steal your idea? And she was like, yeah, go for it, you should do it, I want to watch it. So thanks Rebecca, and her channel and her video will be linked in the description below. That's it, thanks for watching. If you like this video, give it a like. Please drop a comment down below with everything that I got wrong in this video, all the tiers that were in the wrong place, all the books that I have poorly ranked in your opinion, and of course subscribe to the channel because every little subscription helps. Thanks so much for watching, and I will speak to you tomorrow.